to our Finance to Facebook Live, where we will be discussing joining Facebook with a background in finance. We'll chat about what we did before joining Facebook, transferable skills and life at Facebook. I'm your host, Don. I'm an engineering manager at Facebook, and please ask questions during this broadcast and we will get to a few throughout the live. So let's kick off with some intros from our group here. Introduce yourself, Swan. Tell us about the team you worked on and what impact it has at Facebook.
Hello everyone, I'm Chuan. I'm a software engineer in the Similarity Detection Infra, which is part of the Integrity Infra. We support a lot of integrity teams, both in London and in other places. So our main task is to find similar contents more quickly and in larger scales, so that we could better deal with the violating photos and videos and to protect our community from unpleasant content and stuff.
Cool. Nadia, what team do you work on and what impact does it have?
I'm part of the Sapiens team, and it's an automated testing team. We try to find crashes in all of our apps before they are released to the public, and in some cases we also try to fix them automatically.
Cool. And Doug?
So I work on infrastructure at Facebook. So I work on a team called Scribe, which is basically a distributed logging infrastructure. We move more than a terabyte of data every second inside of Facebook, which is pretty interesting. And this team is entirely in London, and the project is supported and entirely from the London office. So that's pretty cool.
I'm Don. I'm an engineering manager. I manage testing and verification at Facebook. This is a set of teams that find bugs in Facebook's code. So let's talk about what we were doing before Facebook. We all worked in finance in different forms. Doug, what led you to Facebook?
So before Facebook, I spent a few years working for a proprietary trading company here in London. And before that, I was at Google. So I kind of knew both ends. I learned a lot working in the trading firm. I worked on a front office team, helping the quants to turn their ideas into working strategies. But after a while, I kind of ended up missing the culture and the scale of a company like Google or Facebook. So a friend of mine who's been here for like 10 years has been trying to get me to consider coming to Facebook. And I reached out to him. He started introducing me to people at Facebook, and here I am.
Yeah, terabyte a second. And Nadia, what were you doing?
I was an information architect in a bank. I was working in cybersecurity. I was kind of data modeling and data quality and that sort of thing. I knew of the Sapiens team because some of the people on it were my previous colleagues, and what they do is very similar to what I did in my PhD. So for me, that was like a dream job to work on that sort of thing.
Cool. Swan?
So I was a software engineer in a risk team. My job was to help build CRT trading systems, and what led me here is I was very attracted by the culture here. After I talking to a couple of friends and classmates in working in Facebook, I feel it's a better fit for me. So here I am.
Yeah. In my background, I was head of a global strats team in derivatives wholesale banking, building trading systems and risk systems and ultimately all kinds of pricing and trading systems. I think I remember waking up one morning after a 3-month tour of Singapore on the trading floor thinking, I need to do something new. I've reached the limit of what I can do in this job, and Facebook offered a scope that was much bigger. This kind of terabyte a second challenge is kind of an absurd scale to think of. So, Tuan, how did you know Facebook would be an option for you? You were out at Canary Wharf. Had you thought about applying your talents to a tech company?
I learned about these opportunities through my classmates mainly. So the job at Canary Wharf was the first one after my graduation. I worked there less than 2 years. During that time, I still keep contact with my classmates at school, and when we hang out, I get to know what they were doing and what kind of life they were having, and so that appeals me a lot. And then I get to know what they were looking for software engineers. I know I have the skills, so I just applied.
You could really see the difference of your classmates who were already here.
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
they are more they have a more serious attitude towards technologies, and they seek more challenges here. And
You're more of a technology focus.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. I guess my thinking was similar. I'd worked in the US in the West Coast on a startup, and I'd worked in New York and Singapore and London in banking, and ultimately it was all software engineering. It was computer science. I was coming in and doing caches. I was doing low latency systems. I was optimizing for reliability. So I was doing technology, and I knew that that's a transferable skill. I hadn't thought of how Facebook could, you think of it as a website or as a set of mobile apps. What are the actual technical challenges in the back end is actually all like building trading systems. I had a colleague who I'd been in touch with over a decade who'd suggested opportunities, and I'd never really bitten, but the right team at the right time and testing and verification is very similar to my background, and it made good sense. And Doug, how did you think of Facebook as an option? You'd had the Google experience.
So when I was at Google, I sort of had the option of joining Facebook at that time, and it felt like too much of a risk. Facebook was very young, and Google seemed like a safe option. I probably should have made the opposite choice, but it was already there in the background in my head. So when I started missing the large-scale tech culture, I reached out to people in Facebook and started meeting people from Facebook, which was a really positive experience. And I really enjoyed kind of the culture that I was.
You're very open, right? We'll bring you in, come and see the office.
So it was a really, this was pre-interview, so it was a really interesting experience. And then did a lot of practice on the interview process and made sure that I was going to pass the interviews, and everything else kind of flowed from there.
Were you practicing the coding questions or the design questions?
All of them.
Yeah. We get very good material for
Yeah.
preparation.
Actually, the recruiting people were very supportive. They pointed me at various videos and sites to basically cover what was going to happen in the interviews.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel like any of it was a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I got my Coleman algorithms book down from the back of the shelf and implementing merge sort, work out the complexity. So Nadia, what are some of the misconceptions about working at Facebook that you can remember from before, and also from perhaps your colleagues, and how's your experience been different?
So one thing, as you mentioned, the interviews. One thing is that people often think that if they didn't have a job where they were coding every day, then it would be very hard for them to pass the interview. And I don't think that's true, because, for example, I didn't do much coding in the year before I joined here, but I still was able to pass. I did need to do a lot of practicing, probably more than people who were coding every day.
You were doing architecture and modeling.
Yeah. But it's still possible. So I think if you're not doing like a developer or coding job, it doesn't mean that you can't move to Facebook. Another thing is, I guess you also had the same experience, is that people think it's a website and you're just going to be working on PHP all day. Yeah. And that's of course not true. For me, I maybe didn't know the extent of the projects that were in Facebook and the exciting things that were going on. So when I joined in Bootcamp, where all the teams come and pitch for you to choose which team you want to join, I was amazed by how interesting the projects were, and I just kind of wanted to join more than one team. So that was really an eye-opener for me.
It's amazing to come in as an engineer and you're in a class, and then all these managers turn up to sell their teams to you, and you get to choose. It's clearly the demand is on the engineering team to try and find people, and it could be WhatsApp, or it could be Oculus, it could be VR, it could be C++ low latency systems. Yeah, my experience was similar. I think the usual joke was, okay, it's the PHP website company. Of course, it's not like that at all. I think I used more than 5 languages in Bootcamp, just implementing things.
You get the badge.
Get a badge. So there was some Haskell, some JavaScript. The CIO of London at the time was setting me Bootcamp tasks to implement JavaScript features. And of course, I didn't know that. It was just somebody who's assigning me some tasks in Bootcamp. Because there's no expectation of level or title. You just come in and you do the work and you learn about the company. And it's very healthy. The experience has been quite different coming from a bank where there were expectations of being on a trading floor and being in a desk, 8 till 6 or 8 till 5. I have young children, so I now have the mornings blocked off to drop them off at nursery. I have evenings blocked off to be at home so they have a meal and can be tucked into bed. The flexibility around the work is quite different. So it's much more about get the work done, not burn the hours. Nothing's measured in hours. And we have no meeting Wednesdays. We have work from home, heavy amounts of work from home, and online collaboration through tools like Workplace. I think that's makes the work more flexible, and I didn't anticipate how much different that would be. It's been a pretty amazing change. So if you're watching, don't forget to ask questions. We'll get to any as they come in, as many as we can. So let's talk about the different career tracks, Doug. So we have the manager and we have the individual contributor or IC track at Facebook. These are the two main career paths for people with an engineering background. What's been your experience on the IC track?
So one thing which is different about a company like Facebook in comparison to a lot of European companies is that the IC track goes all the way up. You can be, if you're successful as an IC, you can carry on that track up to a level which is equivalent to a vice president of the company. So as long as you're successful, and maybe we'll talk about that later, your career path is not capped by you wanting to stay as an individual contributor.
You never have to become a manager just because you run out of options to grow. Yeah.
And the other thing which is important is that as you become more senior as an IC, you'll be asked if you're interested in management. There's structured learning around that. You can switch to the management track, but you can also switch back. There's no friction. The levels are equivalent. The compensation's equivalent.
Yeah. Yeah, you can change careers without any of the other aspects changing. It's about your passion for engineering or for growth of others and coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is astonishing to see how we have VP equivalent engineers. We have engineers who are board level equivalent. They're measured on changing the industry and changing the company is their focus. On the manager side, it is, as you say, you come in and qualify as an engineer in the interview, but you're also assessed on people management and project management. And empathy and coaching and delegation is a key distinguisher. So it's whether you derive your passion through others or through writing code. And sometimes I switch between both. But the manager track, there's no assumption that you know how to do it. You come in as a manager. You have you're sort of passionate about people and coaching. That's really the driver, and then you get trained. You get really good coaching. The kind of learning and development opportunities we have for managers is astonishing. I learned so much more about managing projects. I'd had 10 years of project management and people management, but never in a structured way and never in an intentional way we do it here. So I learned much more about delegation, about growth. The focus on growth of engineers as the primary driver of an engineering manager's success is really astonishing and really healthy. So I'm measured as an engineering manager through how well I grow other people and the impact that they have. So maybe that's a good point to talk about collaboration. We don't code in a silo. We code with others, but we also don't do top-down planning. So you're not told what to do, and your engineering manager would never say, no, don't do that. It's up to you to find things and do them. And then to have impact. Your engineering manager is your coach. To be successful, you have to collaborate. There's nothing that works at this scale without a lot of people helping. So Nadia, how do you collaborate with others, and how do you go about that?
So like you said, as engineers, we come up with the ideas, and let's say you know the objective of your team, and you're trying to come up with new ways of kind of having more impact and reaching that objective more successfully. So, for example, if I had an idea about how to change our algorithms to find more crashes or something, then I would talk to other members on my team just to get some feedback. You might also use Workplace to post about it, especially if it's if it's an idea that might affect more than one team or something.
You're sort of broadcasting the idea and,
Yeah.
and seeing where it lands.
Yeah. And if people think it's a good idea and they believe in it, then you would get people kind of chipping in and having more like more of a discussion, giving more maybe ideas of how to implement what you're trying to do, and maybe even working with you on it. And that's like how it goes. For me, my whole team is in London, and a lot of the teams we work on are also work with are also in London. So it's very easy to just set up a one-to-one, or to walk up to someone's desk and ask a question or talk about something. So it's very, I feel the work environment just encourages you and helps you to collaborate.
And you have several ways you can take the idea. You can take it to a hackathon, and we have these fairly regularly. It's a good idea. I'm not sure if it's something to do right now, but we wait for the hackathon, and then you'll just hack together with somebody, drink coffee, 24 hours later you've got a product. Or it might be a boot camp idea, or it might be a war room. Sometimes we'll have a sprints where we have a war room where we just intentionally get together in a room in a kind of concentrated environment and hack on something to make it work. Or it just organically comes into planning and people will assemble around the idea. I've seen, you see a good idea attracts engineers, whereas bad ideas just don't get traction. So it's a very healthy marketplace, I think, for ideas. And Doug, how do you collaborate in the Scribe logging team? You have a lot of data and a lot of pipes.
So a lot of my experience is very similar to Nadia. Our team is entirely in London. It's quite a large team, so that has some communication challenges, but we fundamentally we approach things in the same way. If you have an idea, you reality test your idea with your colleagues, maybe write about it and post it on Workplace. We use Workplace a lot for this kind of thing. The difference with the Scribe team is that as a core piece of Facebook infrastructure, we have people using our service all over the company in many different time zones. So that presents one or two challenges. We find that there's good overlap between like West Coast teams in the US with London towards the end of the day. So we'll structure our days to do project work towards the beginning of the day and reserve the later part of the afternoon for syncing up with customers, making sure that we're providing the right service for them, working out what their problems are and how we can help them solve their problems.
And so that's VCs and calls and meetings.
We use VCs a lot.
Yeah.
I think someone told me that Facebook is probably the largest user of VC in the world.
It is amazing to walk into a meeting room and you just see, who do I want to talk to anywhere, dial them, they're on screen, immersive experience.
That team's here in London as well.
And Suan, how do you collaborate in the integrity space?
Integrity space. So our team is entirely based in London, but we support a lot of other integrity teams in Seattle, DC, MPK. In the integrity world, we have like the Integrity Week, which happens twice a year. It happened last week, and almost all the integrity team get together, and we have 3 days of talks and discussion sessions, so we get to know what other people are doing, what our clients are doing, if we are able to cope with their demand for growth, and if anything we could support them, or if they have any feedback. We have a discussion session that's called Bird of Feather, so we could gather their feedbacks, and this is a very efficient way of communicating and get together, know more people, know better ideas, come up with better objects, this kind of collaboration. And in our daily life, in the collaboration within team, we have like the deep dive sessions. So someone has a system to design or a problem to tackle. He will present his problem and he will come up with a solution, but he will try to present to other teammates, and we try to not attack, but try to evaluate the pros and cons of different ways. Yes, yes. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah. So the integrity space is so large now that you have a week of talks and ideas and just brainstorming, and people are getting up and giving presentations and having little hacks on the side, and that's amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah, in as an engineering manager, the collaboration aspects are a little bit different. It's a lot about, it's less about technical writing, more about sharing strategies, plans, and roadmaps and opportunities, helping find ways for engineers to meet each other, to foster these spaces where people can collaborate. You want the engineers to come together and work on the good ideas. And as an engineering manager, you sometimes see across the divide on another team is working in a similar area and the engineers are talking. So how do we solve that problem? Well, we might, we'll go and have drinks together, or we'll have lunch, or we'll have a crazy off-site day, or we'll fly out to California or Seattle or New York. That's a very common thing, actually, is a good idea. Somebody needs something done. We don't know how to solve it. Let's just fly a couple of people and hack together for a week. It's an extremely common way to solve things. And then I often will meet. So in the morning is typically writing one-on-ones with my engineers on my team, learning about where they are and helping prioritize and coach and give strategic feedback. It's sort of feedback on direction. The engineers decide what to do. I would never say no. And so my job is more about, have you thought of this? Or is that as big an opportunity as you think? Or is there a bigger opportunity? Is this the best use of your time? The afternoons tend to be more syncing with partner teams, so engineering managers with similar problems or users of the system or systems that my team use, and getting aligned about what happens in the next month, next 3 months, next 6 months. And from those we'll have initiatives like joint war rooms or these weeks where, for example, a team will come out from Seattle and spend a week with us just learning about what we do, and a few ideas will emerge, and out of that 1 or 2 or 3 engineers will go off and build something new that we hadn't planned for. Nothing is ever... I guess that's the key thing, is nothing is ever planned in stone from the start. It's always open to change. It's always flexible. You can always pivot. You're encouraged to fail early, and there's no... very different to finance. There's no sort of march where you must just continue on this project until the date the BRD says you have to deliver. I don't know if you worked on projects like that, but I did. We never would do that. We would just stop and we would do something more productive and more useful. Yeah. So we talked a bit about boot camp as a kind of a transformative experience when you come in and reset your expectations, learn the company, and start by coding. Learn the company by coding. What was your experience in boot camp like, Swan?
Yeah, so my boot camp was a pretty long one. I think I got to decide which team to join on week 9. I think that's a pretty long one, because there were so many like interesting and open teams in London, and you have chances to. So, for example, if you're interested in them, you could first pick up a task from them. And it's not just a task. During the task, you get to know the context of what their team is working on, and stuff like this. And then you close down your options to several teams. You get the chance to work with them, like sit with them, and even go to their weekly meetings and hang out with them for lunch. And you have a real feeling of what your future colleagues would be like, if you're going to like to work with them or not. So it's really a decision you made early, and you will not forget. You'll not regret. So
you learn the culture of the team. You learn the pace of work in the team.
Teams are really different. You have to. There is no good or bad team. It's just some team suits you or not.
Yeah.
So you get to choose. If you're not pre-allocated, you're not. Forced to join the team, so you're really happy with your choice, then you have a happy life.
Yeah, and so was there a sense of you had several options. You were given space after you come back from the classes. The classwork is finished, and so you're doing tasks in teams and exploring. And you looked at multiple teams, not just Integrity, did you?
Yeah, I looked at a lot of different teams.
Yeah,
and also the task you're working on is not some dummy tasks, or like your code will be thrown into being. It's not tests.
Yeah.
So your code will be really shipped into prod, and you can have real impact on the web or apps that's used by people out there in London.
It's an amazing experience, isn't it? You're a boot camper who is trying to learn how to function, and you're solving real problems for people.
On day 2.
On day two.
On day 2.
Yeah. It's astonishing. And then I don't know if you guys get the pings to maintain the code, because it's still there. It's out there running. So, the tasks get raised. Yeah, my experience was pretty interesting. As an engineering manager, you go through boot camp just like everybody else as an engineer, and you're doing tasks and you're doing classes and you're going through networking. I did the back-end and infra stream, so it was basically how to build a data center, how to lay cables, how to build a network, how BGP worked inside the data center, and you're just how the proxies work, and you're just reconstructing the whole stack from first principles. And then doing tasks, I was doing JavaScript tasks in the front end, I was doing mobile apps, I was doing some back-end Haskell tasks, some C++. It was so fun to just have this. It's like being back in university again. You have a task, a couple of days, hack, drink some coffee, go for a walk around, get a smoothie, out in the sunshine in California. And then at the end, you feel like you've learned something useful. I spent a lot of time on dashboards. We're so metric driven, right? So learning how to use dashboards and run data queries was really valuable. And then I could join my team, and the first thing I did was just build a dashboard, trying to understand what was going on, using the skills I'd learned in boot camp. So it created that. It helped with the imposter syndrome of do I actually know what I'm doing? I'm able to be useful, sort of sweeping up some of the logging tasks that were lying around. Nadia, what was your boot camp like?
So for me, it was a little bit different because I knew which team I wanted to. I wasn't pre-allocated, but I knew that I wanted to join Sapiens. So I focused more on the tasks and getting to know different technologies, just to be comfortable before and I think it helped me a lot because at the end of boot camp, when I joined my team, I've already done like 2 or 3 tasks for them, and I've also worked on everything. Like I think I worked on Instagram, a bit of C and C++, and also I think I worked on most of the apps and a lot of the back end as well. And so and of course it was a lot of fun, and especially when we go for the 2 weeks in MPK. So it's quite a different experience because the size of the campus and the food is much more, like a lot more options there.
A lot more tacos and burritos. But that is an interesting point about the language stack. Projects choose their technologies. We don't mandate particular technologies, so it's not like it's all Java from top to bottom.
Yeah.
It's all Oracle. It's the right technology for the right team at the right time. Yeah. And as an engineer or as an engineering manager, you're encouraged to be flexible with technologies. So you will do a Haskell task, or you will do a JavaScript task, and it might be in the same team, in the same project. It's really, it means it pushes your fundamentals a little bit more. It's more about your fundamental computer science ability rather than any specialization you've had. What was your experience, Doug? You have a long open source background. You worked in kernels and OSs and networks for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that boot camp is a really unique experience, and we talked about team selection, working out which team you really want to work in, and I think this is really important. The other thing which I got from boot camp was starting to build my network in the company. So the people that start on the same day as you will move together through boot camp, and you make friends in that group, and you form connections in that group, and then that network kind of spreads through. And one of the best things about my boot camp was visiting MPK and just meeting so many different interesting people working in different teams, different orgs, doing different things, and just basically starting to build my network. Because we talked about Facebook not being a top-down hierarchical company. The way that we get things done as engineers is by having a network of people that you can draw on. This person understands this piece of technology that I think that we can work together with and build something new. And that's how Facebook really functions.
Yeah, it's really the social network inside the company is key to your sort of influence. It's an astonishing thing that when you push the technology decisions to the engineers, the projects emerge through collaboration. And effective collaboration means lots of sharing, lots of talking, lots of communication, and building a network. And bootcamp's really partially about building the network. I know for engineers who join my team, I give them a list of, here's 15 people to talk to while you're out in the sunshine having tacos walking around California. Go and meet these people and just talk. And there's no agenda and there's no specific thing that we're doing yet, but they do interesting work and you do interesting work and you should be aware of each other. It's a very healthy way. It's more like open source, or it's more like university in some ways, that it's the engineers coming together to solve the problem. Very healthy. So let's talk about the favorite thing about working at Facebook. So you're all in quite different teams, and we've made quite a big jump since leaving the banks and the hedge funds. What is keeping you here, and how has your life changed? For me, the hours are different. I'm not explaining my project to MDs who don't quite understand what we're doing and why, who don't understand the technical strategy. I don't have those discussions. I don't have. It's a different kind of discussion. I don't have political discussions about is this a good strategic. There are often political discussions in banks that are about particular agendas of one team or one desk or one MD. Those don't seem to happen. It's much more about what is the technical merit of the idea. Does it make sense given the context and skills of the people around? And I'm able to structure my time much more effectively. So I block off nursery in the morning so I can drop my kids off. I'll often block off half days just to do writing, just to put down ideas on strategy for projects and opportunities for teams to work together. That's sort of the level of thinking is much more strategic and intentional and based on writing and sharing ideas. And obviously I put my suits in the back of the cupboard and I put the ties, they're all sitting in the back of the cupboard now, and such an investment in suits. Tuan, how's your life changed since you left Canary Wharf?
I think I'm living a happier life. I feel the company is putting a lot of trust in the engineers and in the people who do the work. It's really up to you to decide which is the best way to approach problems, and you have to discuss within your teams and like stuff like this. There were roadmaps for a half, but you really pick up something interesting, something more impactful during the way you progress, and there are new things coming up, and there is no mandate of you must be doing this half, and you are getting trust, and there is no black box across the company. You can access any code in any product anywhere. So if you want to know about more things, there is no block for you.
You just check it out and modify it and do it.
Yes. So that's you feel you're trusted, and the people around you are more supportive. You're not facing people like this is not my business. If people could not help you, they will say, I know a better POC for this. Maybe you can talk to him about it. So it's really more encouraging. So you also, in this environment, you tend to be a nicer person as well. You try to support people as well.
You don't just say, no, that's a bad idea, do you? You say, well, explain their context, explain the idea, assume that the person has a good intent.
Assume everyone has a good intent. Yeah, you have a happier life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And do you find that the pace has changed? You talked about, I guess it's implicit here that we're planning in 6 monthly cycles, but we're actually making many smaller decisions and tactical shifts along the way, and we're stopping things and trying new things, and new ideas just emerge spontaneously. It'll be October and I found a better idea. It's hard to remember the phase shift of the pace, but what was the pace like in the bank? Was it multi-year planning? Was it set in stone what the agenda was?
I feel there is one big project. It's try to merge a lot of tools together into a gigantic, unique tool. And this is about 2 or 3 years project, and it's progressing slowly until the very end of it. It might deliver or it might not deliver. So it also really is. You don't know the result. You just march along the way, kind of thing.
You're a cog building this huge system that was planned before you joined the company. It will be delivered after you've left the company.
Yes.
And it may never be delivered.
Yeah.
And careers could be created and fail in the time that this is running.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we just don't have projects like that, do we?
No, we don't.
We talk about fail
We
fast.
we have larger projects, but we break them into
Break them down.
achievable pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are big constraints that we face. The amount of network capacity, the number of data centers, the number of users. These are big numbers that we have to tackle.
Yeah.
But how we solve that is not mandated. Nobody knows the solution now and thinks what it will be like in 2021 or 2025. You don't. That planning, where we planned the future. I don't know if you ever had BRDs where you wrote in the date for a particular delivery. You know, the network appliance with cache will be delivered on this date, at this time, at this hour, with all the approvals in place. We never would do something like that.
We kind of have some of those constraints in Scribe because we're a huge service, so we do have to plan for our future capacity.
You have to keep it
and
up
we
all
have
the
to
time.
make sure that we order it in enough time to keep up.
Yeah. And Nadia, what's your favourite thing about working in Sapiens in testing?
So the thing I like the most is that engineers are in control of their own career. Like we said, engineers decide what projects they want to do or what ideas they want to work on. So that makes me feel like I'm in control of how my career goes. I'm not working on a project that someone assigned me to that I might not be interested in, or maybe I don't think this project will be successful. I decide what I want to do, and so it's both a responsibility. You take responsibility for your own.
You take the risk.
Yeah, you take the risk, and so it feels a lot more empowering. But also, we are encouraged to give feedback really early on, so that you know what other people think about what you're doing and what they think about if it's going to succeed or not, or whatever, how you're doing it, how you're approaching it. So it's much easier for you. It's much easier for you to change and adjust based on people's feedback early on. But also you know, so you kind of know where you are, where you stand every step of the way. So when it comes time to performance review, it's not a surprise. You know exactly how you did and it's also the way we measure things in terms of impact or all the other dimensions we are the performance reviews based on. You know what you did and you know how it's going to be. So a lot of transparency.
It's very clear what your requirements are.
Yeah.
You have a metric. As a manager, I would say, that's a great idea. What's your measure of success? How will you know if you failed? What's the earliest thing you could do that would show this works? Has anyone else given you feedback on this idea? Is there a consensus that this is the right thing?
Yeah.
Are you aware of these other teams, such that when you get to PSC, it's already very clear what the impact is,
Exactly.
how
There are no
how it's read. There's no
surprises.
surprises. It should never be a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that idea that you get feedback very early, I think, is quite a shift. You don't secretly work on a project, not show anybody, and then launch it to the world. We work in smaller increments. We put the minimum thing up to see if it lands and see if it works, and we grow like
And
that.
we post about it and
We try
share
on
with
small number of
people.
users, and it's always about writing. I think maybe there's more burden on engineers to talk a bit about their work and write it down, not just to hide in the corner office and think up ivory tower thoughts.
That's definitely true. I feel like I need to do more writing, in fact.
Yeah, so Doug, how has your life changed? You left the prop trading world behind.
So I feel more productive here, in fact. There's the scale that we're working at is quite different, and that's stretching me as an engineer and forcing me to grow as an engineer. I feel like I'm learning new things pretty much all the time, which is one of the things that usually makes me happy. So that's good. Yeah.
So how are you being stretched? Is it you're building a logging framework?
Building.
So you've got an operating system, you've got a kernel, you've got a network stack, you've got the C compiler.
All of those things, they work together, and it's not just on a single machine. There are thousands of machines. So it's the interesting challenges of working with a distributed software system is forcing me to learn how that works. And it's quite different from working on a single program on a single machine.
Yeah, the scale is astonishingly different. And you have more levers available. You can talk to the data centers, you can talk to the networking of people.
If the data center people say, well, this class of traffic is using up too much bandwidth, we can change the priority so that the website gets the first choice of the bandwidth, and then our stuff will use up all the available bandwidth to move the background data around.
That's very interesting. So is you're collaborating with other teams on a shared value to the company.
Yes.
It's not territorial,
Yes.
and it's not, it comes back to good intent. We assume that we're all contributing good value to the company, and not one team's bandwidth is not more valuable than another. It's a consensus that emerges about how to structure and solve these problems.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We have to, when we talk about bandwidth at the very large scales, we have to make sure that we're using it effectively. If we're wasting all of the network bandwidth of the entire company on something which isn't valuable, then we should probably revisit that. So we have to bear these things in mind, but fundamentally, we don't judge what other people are doing with the service. We just make sure that it works.
It works and keeps the pipes flowing. Yeah. I think for me the challenge as an engineering manager, it's also about the scope and the growth. I work with engineers who are the best I've worked in my career, the best engineers. You don't have, it's not like there's one or two good engineers. The bar is just astonishingly high. People are very competent. And as an engineering manager, you're not trying to coach people up to be mediocre and okay. You're trying to optimize these astonishingly good performers to be even better at what they do. That's a very different mindset for most engineering managers. It's more about coaching. It's more like a sports team where you've got astonishing contributors who each have particular skills and you want them to be better at that thing. And so that pushes my strategic and tactical abilities to help projects succeed and help engineers find the right opportunity quite a lot. I spend a lot of time thinking about that, actually. We have some live questions here. So Barris asks, what languages are transferable and what skills in those languages? That's an interesting question. So I guess, Doug, networking, C++, I guess there's some experience from prop trading that it comes across.
So the work that we did on the prop trading thing was mostly in C++ because latency was easier to control there. C++ is a very well supported and very widespread language inside of Facebook, so those skills transfer directly.
It's kind of a workhorse in the data center, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, in terms of, I guess, lines of code, C++ and Java are way up there, so those skills are very common across the industry, not just in Facebook, but across banking as well. So I think those skills are...
And skills in networking, in distributed systems, caching, everything's cached.
All of those things are the same, really.
Reliability. I think that's keeping sockets up talking to exchanges is very like keeping sockets up talking to mobile phones.
Definitely, yeah.
A question from Amy. How do you feel more fulfilled now versus when you were working in finance in terms of the goals and the mission of the organisation? Nadia, maybe that's a good question for you. Are you making an impact?
I hope so, yeah. So I do feel... Yeah, I do feel more fulfilled. One thing about Facebook is that a lot of the projects we work on end up being open source. So when you're making contribution, you know that if you're successful, your impact wouldn't be just on the company, but maybe on the whole community.
Yeah.
So that's for me, that's also one of the things that...
I think of that beautiful code I wrote in the bank that will never see the light of day. It's gone. But now it's all open sourced. Our info is largely open sourced.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. So, Tuan, what about you? Versus working in finance, do you feel, is it more fulfilling when you leave the office at the end of the day?
Definitely, especially the team I'm working in, we help a lot with protecting the community. Forgive me, I could not disclose too many details, but there were people like bad actors or bad people that get caught by our systems, and they were doing bad things, and we caught them. We help to protect people's mind, people's eyes, and those stuff. I think it's really making a difference
in the life of millions of people.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a real tangible improvement. Yeah, that's astonishing. So we've come to the end of the live. A big thanks to our panel of engineers here, Tuan, Doug, and Nadia. You can learn more by following the hashtag Finance to Facebook. There's a URL on the stream as well that goes to a landing page where you can register your interest and learn more about our stories. We've posted some things about that. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We are growing and hiring in London. We have a large office here and we have a lot of fun. We need more colleagues. So make your move, apply online at fb.careers/finance to Facebook. So thank you, everybody. Bye.